Okay. Well, this guy came in, and he came up kind of after a sermon. He said, "Man, I wish I could do like you and just talk out of my head." And I thought, well, that's probably right. The thing I want to do today is I feel compelled to have a text, and so be not deceived. Galatians 6 verse 7. Thank you very much. God is not mocked. You will reap what you sow. But I've been interested over the past several years in just ways that we fool ourselves. We get into situations and we rationalize and make it seem all right. So I'm going to do a couple of things that come from books. This seems to be a friendly place where you could do something from books. We have people here who read such things. In the bookstore, Miss Carly, see Carly Napier over there? Carly Napier, there she is. In the bookstore, you can find this book called I Told Me So, and it's a great book. And there's another book called Leadership and Self-Deception, and I'm going to refer to those two books some, and you will find, if you actually buy those books and read those books, that I don't do very much with either one of them. You will go, there's a lot more in this book than he used. And that's true of the Bible too, so that works out fine. But this man who writes I Told Me So is named Greg Tin Elthoff. So he's got to write good books. He's got lots of names. He's a philosophy professor at Biola University. And he writes this. It's a little bit of extended reading, but you got nothing else to do. So just, what's it? He says, I'm a college professor. I have been for almost a decade. I work reasonably hard at my job, and I think I do it fairly well. In fact, in my honest and solitary moments, when there's no occasion for false humility, I say I'm a better than average teacher. I'm in good company. A study recently revealed that 94% of the people who do what I do think they are better than average. And it's not just college professors. A survey of 1 million high school seniors found that 70% thought they were above average in leadership ability, and only 2% thought they were below average. In terms of ability to get along with others, all students thought they were above average. 65% thought they were in the top 10%. And 25% thought they were in the top 1% of students with the ability to get along with others. Clearly, a lot of people are wrong about how they stack up in comparison with their peers. Fortunately, I am not one of them. Am I? What's going on here? I proceed. These are intelligent and often self-reflective people. Many of them are aware of statistics like the ones I've first cited. For some of them, the evidence against the suggestion that they're doing a better than average job is fairly straightforward. They still persist in their belief. They discount or ignore the evidence suggesting less than stellar job performance, negative course evaluations, people falling asleep in class, low course enrollments. I had no classes this past year. Bad test results, and find unusual standards against which to judge their work. But they seem utterly oblivious to the fact that they're doing this. They are victims of a completely successful sham and deserve our pity, except for the fact that there's nobody to blame for the lie but them. If they're to blame, should we put pity on them? And who can blame them really? They've got an amazing good thing going when you stop to think about it. It's hard work being a genuinely better than average college professor. It's hard to engage thoughtfully with the 43rd paper in the stack on Plato's Republic, most of them written the morning they were due. It's hard work getting to know the quiet student on the other side of the classroom, the one who sits all alone. It's hard to know her well enough to help her with her thinking, Connecting with students often means time with them beyond what we do in the classroom. A movie night to discuss The Matrix, or at your house on Wednesday night, the collegiate chess club. Well, and what do you get in return for your effort? There isn't much money in it. And if your field is relatively obscure, mine's philosophy, you can forget about fame. At least you get to go through life with a certain satisfaction in the realization that your job is important and you're doing it well. But suppose you could have the same experience of satisfaction without all the work of becoming and continuing to be a genuinely better than average college professor. If you could convince yourself that you were better than average, I love this, you could enjoy all the benefits of theft over honest toil. The one catch is, you'd have to do all of this while convincing yourself that you're not. If you caught yourself in the lie, you'd miss out on the satisfaction that comes from really believing that you're doing a better than average job. So this is the deal. To believe that you're doing a great job when you're not. And what's alarming is that if I'd taken the deal, it would seem to me, as it does in fact seem to me, that I had not. Well, that's a long reading and you don't do that. But isn't it interesting that there are places that you can go and have that sense that you're above average? Look at all these above average folks we have here. And I am one of them, certainly. I would say we're all in the top 25%. It's like people have been saying about weather in Austin. The heat here is always above average. Well, that can't be right. That can't be right. And we have to move past our desire to deceive ourselves into thinking that we're something that we're not. And so, I want to talk about three things. You knew I'd talk about three things, didn't you? I want to talk about three things that people do in order to help themselves have the feeling that as preachers, it's possible to get all the satisfaction of being an excellent minister without all the hard work of actually becoming one. This is a place I get to put together different things I've read. This allows me to take three things I've read a little bit about instead of three deep things in one place I would have to read a lot about. You have to understand that, to understand the irony of the lesson. What is said in I Told Me So is that one of the things at least you do to maintain the notion that you're doing an above average job is pick who you're listening to. Perspective selection is very important. In a church, you will have a lot of different people out there, people with different responses to you, people with different opinions about you. You need to make sure you pick the ones who like you. And listen to the ones who like you, because there are critics out there. And the critics are the people who don't get you. Over the years, I worked with the Minister Support Network, and over about 15 years, had the opportunity to spend 3 days, 3-day weekends with ministers and their wives, spouses. And in that process of listening to about 400 ministers, I can't tell you how many, I probably should be able to tell you, but I can't tell you how many there were who would give you this story of, I'm doing this marvelous job, and there's 4 out of the 6 elders that don't get me. And the people in the ladies' Bible class, they don't get me. And the wife would be sitting next to him, and I don't think she got him either. But he had carefully selected a certain kind of reference group that he was sure understood the depth and breadth of his insight into Scriptures and his way of getting close to people and the fact that not visiting was a way of keeping the relationship pure with the people you were speaking to on Sundays. It's important to be able to select. And you might just think back in your own minds about the people that you love to see come toward you on Sundays. The people who come to you and are going to give you a little hug and tell you how you've changed their life and that he and mama will make it one more week because of what they heard. Just wonderful. And you also then have perhaps the vision of the person who's going to come, and even as they walk toward you, you are already discounting what they've said. Well, how could you understand me? Coming from where you come from, with the background you have, with the experiences you have, how would you get the subtleties of what I said that I had borrowed so recently from the internet? In my favorite website, sermonsevenyoucanpreach.com. So you have to pick your group. Now the other thing I'd like to do is refer to another book that is also in the bookstore that Carly is doing. There's Carly. Wave again, Carly. There she is again. This Leadership and Self-Deception. One of my favorite books in the world. I've probably given away 30 of them. Because every now and then I run into somebody who needs some instruction on how to love their neighbor as themselves. And so I give this away, even though it never talks about Jesus or neighbors. And it's not even written by a person. It's written by the Arbinger Institute. I worry about books written by institutes. It gives them a lot of cover. I don't know. But the deal in this book that I think is a valuable thing, if we're going to maintain our innocence of responsibility for the way we work, is that it talks about how you can become the hero of your own life. And this is important, that you be starring in your own show. And the way this is done is that you get into situations where you should do something. You should do something that would be the right thing to do, even the loving thing to do. And when you're in that situation where you would do the right thing, you hesitate. And in the hesitation, you get to think about it. Now the wonderful little illustration that's in there is about a man who is awakened in bed in the middle of the night by a crying baby, his own. He is sleeping in bed with his wife, there's a crying baby, and he wakes up and he goes, "Our baby's crying. I should do something." Wait a minute. The mother of this baby is sleeping beside me. And he begins to go through this process of idealizing himself and his virtues and demonizing the other person in the room. What kind of woman is it who doesn't hear the cry of her own baby? I would get up. I know I would. I would get up and go to this child, but the mother of this child needs the opportunity to respond to this child. And if I go, I work. I've got to go to work in the morning. My sleep, this family, that baby needs me to get my sleep. And the mother of this baby is right here. I can't believe how virtuous I am and how really embarrassed I am to be sleeping next to this woman who doesn't care about her child. And we do it in so many ways. You know, the thing comes up in the elders' meeting, we ought to do more visitation. And immediately, you have the opportunity to go, I should probably do more visitation. But let's not hurry into things, okay? There's a thought you can have here. They're the shepherds. Shepherds know their sheep. They're the shepherds. They call them by name. I'm not a shepherd. They're a shepherd. What kind of shepherd is it that doesn't want to go visit the flock? What kind of shepherd is it that farms it out to the hardworking evangelist? Is it going to mean something on Sunday when I get up and can't find my text that I was out visiting with Miss Bernard and looking at her peaches? So carefully canned and jarred. What kind of elders are these anyway? And you find yourself extremely virtuous, surrounded by people of questionable motives. It works. You're thinking that doesn't work. But perhaps you ought to practice now entertaining that notion that you have some culpability. The third thing doesn't really grow out of either one of these books, and I have no reason to introduce Carly again. But there is this thing that comes out of another guy. See, when you're not preaching, you can drop names. But Bonhoeffer's little book, Life Together, is marvelous. And in it, he says that, well, he calls for something, and the reverse of what he calls for leads me to this third point. One of the ways that we try to manage the fact that we're doing great in the world is that we try to manage our world immediately out of our own willpower and strength. We think of our life as something that we are doing. I am strong, I am powerful, I am talented, I am assertive, I see what needs to be done, and I'm working on it. And it's me against the world. My interface, the distance between me and the world around me is immediate. It's zero. I am in relationship with these people. I am in relationship with this work. It's me. I am at work. And especially when I'm doing stuff for God. I'm doing stuff for God. I am. And this sense that we have that we live in this unmediated world is a very powerful sense of personal strength and personal power. So I can surround myself with the people who like me. I can rationalize and justify my own actions because I am a powerful and virtuous person. I can recognize my own strength and my own power and move out into the world that my will be done outside my office as it is in my office. The problem is, you can end up doing sort of Christian-looking things in remarkably un-Christian ways. Like that. And so, we're called upon to try to do something different. And I'm going to offer three little things that I think are good. And they're sort of simple in that way that you can go, I don't think so. I'm really fine. I'm fine. This matter of deception, this matter of choosing our audience, this matter of needing to get constant approval and to have this sense of constantly being surrounded by fans. To need to please your special group so that they love you it comes from something that's rooted way down deep in us. And when I think of the remedies to this, I don't come up with anything easy. But what I come up with, what I know to be true about this, is that this requires time when you go by yourself, with yourself, into solitude and silence. And perhaps pray some sentence-long ancient prayer in the presence of God. Father, be merciful to me, a sinner. And you stay, and you stay in that quiet, and you stay in that solitude. And the next day you come back, and you come back again, until the person you most are satisfied to be is the person you are in the presence of God. And so that what is not required is the company and the busyness of the fellowship of the fans, but the quiet reflection in the presence of the God who loves you and has always loved you and knows all your stuff, all of it, and will not leave you. The second thing that grows out of the hesitation and rationalization, where you become your own hero and everybody else becomes inferior goods, is the notion of hurry. Hurry to do the good. When there's good to be done, do it. This whole thing about the person that knows to do good and does it not, it's sin. Well, that's a good text, and I understand that text, but I would say the person that knows to do good and waits. What happens after you wait probably ends up being sin. So you find yourself attentive to the opportunity, attentive to the movements of love, attentive to the movements of care, attentive to that moment when you say, this is the time that I could do or I could be something. And you decide to go be it. Been reminded lately that who we are is not who we think we are. Who we are is what we do. If you want to know who you are, don't think about yourself in your most virtuous moment. Think about what you do. What I do is who I am. What I do. And so the advice is that in the moment when you're being led by the best and greatest thing in you, be quick to do it. A third thing. Bonhoeffer says, when you're tempted to manage your world in yourself, out of yourself, by yourself, remember that no Christian ever experiences the world except through the presence of Christ. You do not experience the world except through the presence of the risen Christ. You do not experience another person except through the presence of the risen Christ. We as Christians do not have the right or the need to experience a brother or sister around us except as we experience them through the Lord Jesus. I would really like to be a more or less authentic person. They say there are two things that you probably can't handle real authenticity about: the face of God and the nature of your own sin. You probably need a little cushion on some of those. But to have the grace to know who we are in the presence of God, to know that we are the person who springs to the good instead of waiting for the reasons not to love the neighbor. To know that we are the person who cannot open his or her eyes to look at the face of another without looking through the hands and the feet of Jesus to get there. That somehow we look at everybody cross-eyed. Somehow we do that. Perhaps in these three little things, we'll be less deceived and find ourselves more at home in the things of God in this world. May God bless us all.